Hi, welcome back to Focal Point AFR Talk. Brian Fisher is my name. Free for all Friday. Happy to take your phone calls today. Number to call if you want to join the program, 888-589-8840. We'll talk about anything that's been on the table this week. Anything that's been in the news this week, we'll be happy to chat with you about. Let's start this second hour of Free for All Friday with a call from Rick in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Let's grab Rick. Let me hit the right button here, and we'll get Rick online. Rick, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, welcome. What's on your mind?
Hey, Brian, in the past you have said it's important to use the right words and terminology when we're describing the enemy and their actions.
Uh-huh.
And we keep referring to the sin of sodomy as homosexuality, which I feel like gives credence to the big gays agenda and suggesting that there are two different kinds of people, when in reality we're all either born male or female. Everyone is a heterosexual, some of who choose to practice the sin of sodomy.
Mm-hmm.
So I wish we as Christians would call it what it is, because I feel like that whenever you call it homosexuality, you're saying that, well, there's two different kinds of people out there, which it's no different than murderers and thieves and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
There are people who practice sin, and if everybody called it that, it would be much more distasteful, I think, to both sides.
Yeah.
But the other thing, too, the guy that called in yesterday who was a medical student, I'm not quite sure where he was headed with that, and maybe you remember this quote. I think it was Churchill that said something about what drives the military was something and sodomy. And so basically what happens in prisons and the military are people who normally wouldn't practice the sin of sodomy, but maybe because of their, again, depraved nature, choose to carry out illicit sexual sins that maybe they wouldn't have done otherwise, but still it's sin.
Mm-hmm.
So, put in a position where men are left without the opportunity to express their sexual desires with a wife, may do what,
Mm-hmm.
some people call, say, happen naturally. Instead, what they're doing is not taking up their cross and denying themselves. Of course,
Yeah.
not everyone's a Christian, so they'd be more prone to do that, but still, it's still a front in the face of God, no matter what type of sin you're carrying out.
Yeah. All right, Rick, that's a good call. And, and one of the reasons even people on our side don't want to use the word sodomy is it's an ugly word. Well, it is an ugly word because it's describing an ugly practice. It's a good word. It's a legal word. It's a dictionary word. It's not a bad word, but it's an ugly word, and it's an ugly word because it describes ugly behavior. And I think, the caller's point is well taken, that you want to be careful about ceding ground to the enemy by allowing the enemy to establish the terms of the debate. If you let them set the terms of the debate, if you let them convince you that you can't use the word sodomy, I refer to homosexual marriage as sodomy-based marriage. This is a marriage, pseudo-marriage. It's counterfeit marriage, fake marriage, not the real thing. It's naugahyde marriage. And it is rooted in the act of sodomy, which was a felony offense everywhere in the United States of America. Everywhere in the United States, it was a felony offense, capital offense a lot of places, until 1962. Then Illinois, I believe, got rid of their sodomy statute. It was still a felony offense in the other 49 states until 1972. And then finally, the sexual revolution began to crumble, erode the pillars of American morality. And now you talk about preserving public policies against this behavior. You get tagged as a homophobic bigot for advocating the moral position that all of America took for virtually all of our history. I've got a column up today at rightlyconcerned.com, and the title of my piece is, Yes, We Should Keep Sodomy Laws on the Books. And what I did for this column today, the post today, I encourage you to go there, rightlyconcerned.com. Yes, we should keep sodomy laws on the books. I sent out a tweet with a link to the column. And this was in response to an interview request I got from the Huffington Post yesterday. So Huffington Post contacted me. Meredith Bennett Smith is the reporter. And she wrote in her, this was the request, the email request, I am writing about states that still have anti-sodomy laws on the books. There's about 12 or 14 of them, by the way, that still have anti-sodomy laws on the books. And I was hoping you could lend your opinion to the issue. I know that you have said in the past that states should bring these laws back I was hoping you could tell me a little bit more about that. Also, your home state of Idaho is one of the states that still has such a law. Have you worked to make sure it remains on the books? Do people in Idaho support keeping it, even though it is technically invalid? Any help would be greatly appreciated. Thanks so much. So if you want to read my reply, you can go to rightlyconcerned.com and read the extensive nature, or read the complete comments. I don't have time to go through the whole thing, with you here. And in Idaho, I moved from Idaho in 2009, but there was a relentless effort on the part of homosexual activists in Idaho to put gender identity and sexual orientation protections in our non-discrimination statutes. And they've kept trying. They keep coming back year after year after year. I've been gone for 4 years. I fought it every year that I was there working in the pro-family movement, and we fought it off. We defeated it every single year. They're still trying, and they made an effort again this year, and once again the legislature batted it down. And one of the reasons that I was deeply concerned about adding those words to our discrimination statute is if you prohibit discrimination on the basis of sexually perverse behavior, and you cannot discriminate on that basis in hiring or firing or business decisions, then what that would mean is that every values-driven business owner in the state of Idaho would be subject to a career and business-ending lawsuit every time that business owner made a values-based personnel decision. So this would violate their freedom of religion, and it would violate their right to freedom of association to pick a team, a staff team, employees that represent the values that he wants to project as a business owner. And this is why we vigorously in the pro-life community oppose into the Employment Non-Discrimination Act, because it would do the same thing on the federal level. And one of the points I made to the Huffington Post is there's a well-known saying that the law is a teacher. And there's a value to having a law on the books to express public disapproval of certain behavior, even if that law is unenforceable because of judicial tyranny. Now, a law against sodomy may be unenforceable right now, not because a legislature's ever said it's okay, but because the Supreme Court has said you can't enforce them. Even if it's a valid law, even if it's on the books, even if it expresses the will of the elected representatives, we're not going to let you enforce it. Now, that's where we stand today. But, I said, look, it was helpful to have a law against sodomy on the books in Idaho dealing with this discrimination statute, because one of the arguments we could use is this is clearly behavior, even though you may not be able to enforce it. If it's on the books, this clearly indicates that the elected representatives of the people of Idaho do not believe this is behavior that ought to receive societal approval. In fact, it receives societal condemnation. The elected representative said, look, this is behavior we do not believe ought to be legitimized or given special protections in law, and that helps then when you deal with a non-discrimination statute. Focal Point AFR Talk back in 2. Stay with us.